Alas Caherly agus Ira Guramaigit to Falter Road. Minister Canavan, you're very welcome this morning, and thanks for taking the time to address the issue. And the purpose of the Commencement Matter this morning, Minister, is pretty self-explanatory. We have heard, for very reasonable and logical and understandable reasons over the last number of days and weeks, the intention of the state to get Brexit ready, to host a series of positive engagements around the state. Although I think there would be more positive if they were to come north as well. And certainly we heard quite a lot about Brexit proofing this week's budget, which I think is again necessary given the context. So what I have sought to try and find out, Minister, is as part of all of those plans and all of that engagement, if there is consideration being given by the Department, but also by Government more generally, in the way that they are rightly investing in animals, in businesses, that they too would invest in citizens and citizens' needs and citizens' services in the place where they are. And that's obviously, in this instance, specific to the north of Ireland. Given that citizens there are very much mobilised around this issue, they're concerned, and they're also engaged with Government. So if we are to affirm the statements of not leaving citizens behind, which is welcome, then I think it's time we start to at least plan in our future work programmes, whether that's the budget or indeed other ways, to provide the kind of direct interface that citizens will need in the live dynamic of Brexit, but in particular in a post-Brexit situation where people are uncertain, where people will need to engage with Government and with departments around access to whether that be Irish rights and entitlements or indeed existing EU rights and entitlements as well. So I appreciate I'm not asking for any kind of update on the state of play regarding negotiations. I appreciate the juncture that we are at and the fluidity of these negotiations and the live nature of them, Minister. But, you know, mar a current tú san yari ni winnie tú san uair. You know, if you don't plan ahead, I think we would be in a worse situation to try and provide these services further down the line. So hopefully that's part of Government and indeed the Department's considerations.
Thank you, Senator.
Thanks, Minister.
And I want to thank Senator Donnghaile for raising today the matter of protecting services for citizens, Irish citizens in Northern Ireland post-Brexit. As the Senator pointed out, we are in a critical phase of the Article 50 negotiations. As President Tusk stated in Salzburg in September, we must now seek to maximise progress and results in these negotiations in the coming weeks so that we can finalise and formalise the deal in November. Our preference remains for an overall EU-UK relationship which would resolve all issues, but it remains essential that a backstop is agreed which provides certainty that there will be no hard border in any circumstances, and we need that certainty now because uncertainty is already causing grave concern for communities north and south. In paragraph 52 of the joint report of December, the European Commission and the UK acknowledge that the Good Friday Agreement recognises the birthright of all the people of Northern Ireland to choose to be Irish or British or both and to be accepted as such. The joint report also confirms that the people of Northern Ireland who are Irish citizens will continue to enjoy rights as Irish citizens, as EU citizens, including where they reside in Northern Ireland, and both parties agreed that the withdrawal agreement should respect and be without prejudice to the rights, the opportunities and the identity that come with European Union citizenship for such people, and that the next phase of negotiations would examine arrangements required to give effect to the ongoing exercise of and access to their EU rights, opportunities and benefits. And that position is recognised in the draft protocol. And as the UK leaves the European Union, there is an onus on its government to ensure that it provides as necessary for the recognition in the joint report that the people of Northern Ireland who choose to identify as Irish and therefore as citizens of the EU can continue to enjoy the rights, opportunities and benefits of EU citizenship, including where they reside in Northern Ireland. And in the context of the UK's withdrawal from the EU, the Government is committed to ensuring that the Common Travel Area and the associated rights and entitlements of Irish and British citizens under this long-standing reciprocal arrangement dating back to the 1920s will also continue. And that's also recognised in the text of the withdrawal agreement. The CTA allows Irish and British citizens to move and reside freely in either jurisdiction and enables access to a range of similar associated rights in each other's countries. Under the CTA, Irish citizens in the UK and British citizens in Ireland have the right to reside, work, study and access healthcare, social security and public services in each other's countries, as well as the right to vote in certain elections. Also, since the UK referendum to leave the EU, we have seen a 20% rise in passport applications from Irish citizens resident in Northern Ireland, and since 2016, a significant programme of reform to enhance passport services for citizens has been underway, including the introduction of an excellent online passport service. The distribution of tasks across the passport service has also been refined and improved, and currently the Passport Office in Cork processes all the applications from Northern Ireland, and an anticipated 230 temporary clerical officers will be recruited in 2019, and over 40 of those will be assigned to the Cork office, in addition to 11 permanent officers. In summary, the Government is acutely conscious of the potential impact on Northern Ireland of the UK decision to leave the European Union. We are determined to ensure that the Good Friday Agreement in all of its parts and the gains and the benefits of the peace process are protected for people on the island of Ireland, north and south, as the UK leaves the EU.
Thank you, Minister. Senator, supplementary.
I'll ask Caherly agus be me gas Minister. I'll be brief, and I appreciate actually the update and understand fully the restrictions that are on you, and you do acknowledge quite a number of important and reaffirm quite a number of important positions of government, which of course is welcome and encouraging at this stage. But Minister, just to say, I suppose it is somewhat unfair of me. I'm not trying to dupe anybody or get anyone to reveal their hand. All I'm really trying to do is to encourage and sustain the pressure, because obviously citizens in the north would expect me to do as much, that, you know, as well as the macro political negotiations that are happening, is that people also want to see physical, visible manifestations of that Irish Government support and continued endorsement, which is of course perfectly in line with the word and the letter of the Good Friday Agreement, when you consider that there is existing Irish Government infrastructure in the 6 counties. It's about how we utilise that, how best we utilise that to support the needs of citizens who are crying out for greater Irish Government investment, because no harm to them when they look across the water and they see what's happening there. They don't really have much faith or support for what the British Government are currently doing. Very quickly, Las Caherlack, just in relation to the Passport Office, Minister, it's no wonder that we need to employ those additional 230 staff, given that the General Secretary of the Department has acknowledged that they're under immense pressure. Last year, over 82,000 passport applications came from the 6 counties. That's anticipated to rise again this year in 2018. So just to again encourage, because it's an issue for me, that would it not make far more sense to put some of them 230 people northward, as opposed to in Cork, where, you know, we're quite literally processing these radical increase in applications at the furthest point away from where they're coming from. So again, how we utilise the existing infrastructure, how we deal with people directly in terms of service interface and delivery, I think it would make much more sense that we invest for the future and direct some of that staff really to where the growing demand is generated. So I'll come back again on that one, no doubt.
Senator, Minister.
Thank you, Senator. And you've made reference to the need before to establish a passport office in Belfast once or twice. And in addition to the staff costs that might arise, which are already subsumed into the service in any event, there would be very significant capital investment required, over €1.5 million for the machine required to print the passports. And the fact is, there is a Passport Express service available in Northern Ireland now through over 60 post offices dotted throughout the province. There's also the online service. In fact, if one resides in Belmullet, you're much further away from the Dublin Passport Office than you are from Belfast, for example. And that service works exceptionally well, not alone for citizens residing on the island of Ireland, but indeed for citizens across the world. And in providing that service, we need to ensure we have sufficient capacity in terms of our personnel to process all the applications that are arising, and we expect even more so will arise in the future. We're recruiting those people. There's an excellent ongoing recruitment process in place, and the resources and the capacity of the Passport Office are such now that we are very confident it will be capable of catering for that additional demand in the future.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Senator. Next item. Thank you again. still in session. Welcome, Minister Breen. You're very welcome. And we're on to the next.